Hey guys, it's Shama here for Retailing Weekly again. Super excited, lots of really interesting things that are happening in the industry right now. Also wanted to just kind of let you know that there are so many fascinating things I've been reading about in terms of technology that it would be really awesome for you guys to start to take a look and keep your eye on the prize in terms of what tech companies are starting to do more fashion collaborations. We recently reported at the end of last year that Yoox and Net-a-Porter were opening up a tremendous amount of technology integrations, hiring more tech people, and opening up in London about a 500-person office. Well, what's super exciting is that Nordstrom's is also now doing some technology buyouts. Now, why are they doing this? Well, obviously they want to be able to integrate more in terms of how technology is going to be influencing their customer service experiences, how they're going to be doing the rollouts of their new stores, especially starting to integrate that into their Manhattan, New York City flagship store. So really excited, guys, to see retail companies think a little bit more like technology companies. And I think that that is going to be really the success for the next stage of retail as we move into these next few years. We need to start thinking more in terms of service-oriented technologists and how that can really support the end game for a lot of consumers today. Now, I always mention this, but a lot of technology starts to have a trickle-down effect. A little bit different than Reagan trickle-down economics, which didn't work. But when we think about trickle-down effects for technology, what we start to find is larger companies that start to roll these out, start to pave way for new types of technology that can then be scaled up a little bit more. So when you scale it out, then that allows a lot of small to medium-sized businesses, so a lot of you guys out there, to be able to then implement a lot of new technologies in terms of scaling your companies and being able to offer a lot more in terms of how you are integrating with your consumers. Okay, so that's an exciting piece of news. Nordstrom's buys 2 tech companies. Let's see what happens. Keep your eye on the prize in terms of new technologies and rollouts. We'll definitely be covering those. Now, the next thing I want to introduce is something that I was reading about in the New York Times. And the New York Times did a really interesting coverage piece on influencer marketing and influencers. Now, I'm sure you guys, we've all been super aware, you've got to pay to play, influencers are everywhere. We also know that there are tons of fake influencers out there and fake followers who are pretending, to follow these people, inflating what they are in terms of influencers, and these influencers are getting tons of money and they're being able to garner lots of free stuff, and you guys may have fallen victim to a couple of these types of influencers. But there are now agencies out there that are starting to test the quality of those influencers and the quality of the people who are following you. The one that they mentioned was called Dovetail, Dovetale. I think this is a fantastic tool and resource, especially as you're looking to track and see who your competitors are in the market and who their influencers are and who's following them, but also to start to get a better idea of influencers in general before you guys go ahead and make those investments. Now, I've been a huge, advocate of the micro-influencer, but as we know, guys, it is simply not enough to be able to have a certain amount of followers, even now with engagement, right? We used to say that engagement was the big litmus test in terms of how credible a influencer was, right? They had to have a certain number of people who were following them, engaging, commenting, liking their product and information that they were posting. However, obviously all of those things can be automated. They can be done through using lots of bots. You may be using them yourself. And not like it's necessarily a bad thing if you're using it yourself in order to help build brand awareness. But be careful, guys, because taking a look at the fake influencer market is definitely something that could impact the bottom line of your business. So kudos to New York Times for publishing that article, really giving some visibility out there to people who are possibly likely to get scammed by fake influencers. Now, I also wanted to talk about another great organization that I was recently reading about called the Fashion Foundation, based in New Jersey. The Fashion Foundation really seeks to take leftover product, sell it, and donate those proceeds to a lot of charitable causes and charitable foundations. Now, what's great here is we've seen a lot of different companies try to enter the foray of charitable contributions in terms of fashion. But as we know, guys, more often than not, when it comes to doing charitable contributions, a lot of times fashion companies will in fact rather put holes in their product, off-sell it, and not necessarily go the route of donating it to people who actually need it, also known as like homeless people and homeless people of color and women who are trying to get back into transitional workforces. So I would say, guys, Fashion Foundation seems like a really reputable organization. Please take a look at them, founded by a young female entrepreneur. We definitely want to be supporting different ways and opportunities that fashion can give back in more positive ways. And we want to be able to bridge and build those alliances. So I think that that's really valuable. The next thing I want to chat about is something along the lines of bridging global markets. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the company Shop Shops, but Shop Shops is created as an online platform that really integrates a lot of brands that are domestic in the United States and globally, but connecting them to the Chinese market and to the Chinese audience. And they're doing so through basically using technology very similar to Skype, but also using a payment gateway system that allows it to all be protected, and that gives the money right back into the designer's pockets, into the brand pockets, while taking a small amount of commission. Now, there are other companies out there that are doing something that's very similar to Shop Shops. We have companies out there like Help Just Angels, also known as Open for Sale. And there are a few others out there that I've been keeping my eyes in front of. And guys, I have to tell you, this could be an amazing opportunity for any of you small to medium-sized businesses that are looking to offshore inventory, basically looking to sell your goods to international global markets. Help Just is working primarily in Singapore. Shop Shops really has its foothold in the Chinese markets. But I would definitely suggest taking a look at these places to sell off-season inventory, even goods that are possibly about to go on sale. And the reason why is this gives your product an extra lifespan. It gives you an opportunity to take it a step further, not just have to mark down goods and get rid of them at the end of the selling season. So these kinds of technologies are amazing. They will get only better and better over time, but it's definitely worth taking a look at Shop Shops, definitely worth taking a look at Help Just, and starting to see how you can diversify your products into a more global marketplace. Now, speaking of global marketplaces, recently we published a blog piece on the Scaling Retail blog about how brands and retailers need to start thinking more globally about the kinds of sales that they're pushing out there, starting to speak to a more global audience, even if that means that you're doing domestic advertising regionally in the US, right? Think about celebrating or doing promotions for Ramadan. Think about doing things for Eid. Think about doing things for 11/11, for Singles Day, for your Chinese market. So we need to start thinking a little bit more globally about our promotions. And one company that's been doing a great job of this that you may not know is Net-a-Porter, right? Net-a-Porter has a Ramadan edit in which they kind of do their select pieces and they curate some styles, and they really give a bit of a voice to their diverse customer base. And I think this is really valuable. You know, just the other week, we were doing our buys in Paris for our clients in Bahrain. I'm opening up our retail store. And it's very important, guys, to start to understand how the global market is functioning, even if you are a small to medium-sized business based in the USA. Your business will largely be driven by multicultural and diverse people, and it's important to understand who they are and be able to get a real foothold into that market. Okay, so that's my multicultural, globalized rant. Now, in other crazy news, Hubert Givenchy dies at age 91. Really, guys, when you think about the lifespan of Givenchy, you think about how someone like that came to be. I think it's very important that not only we honor his craftsmanship, his detail, and the house that he built, but also take a step back and kind of start to understand a little bit more about how these fashion houses really came to be and what the true essence is. You know, Givenchy came from an aristocratic family. He had the privilege of being able to intern and apprentice, you know, high-profile, big-name designers when he was quite young. He was able to open up his own atelier when he was also quite young, in his late 20s, early 30s. So when we think about these fashion houses, and yes, their tremendous amount of ability to be on the cutting edge, to garner a lot of attention. Givenchy had Audrey Hepburn as one of his most famous muses, and what's brilliant about that is she was really one of the first influencers, right? When we think about fashion influencers, Jacqueline Onassis was obviously another fashion influencer a bit later, but when you think about how brands started to really align themselves with celebrity, with influence. So, but guys, you know, I am a huge fan. Obviously, Givenchy, after he sold his business, went on to design the company for the company a few more years. Then obviously Galliano, Ford, other really great talented designers came in to really be at the helm. He no longer is at the helm of the business. However, he has a tremendous legacy. And so guys, the game has changed these days. You know, sometimes we look at brands like Givenchy, Balenciaga, and Cristobal Balenciaga was also working with Givenchy. With Givenchy for many years, right? So that's also important how these brands were able to synergize. These days we see it a lot with how different houses are flipping around designers. It's almost a game of musical chairs, and it's very much at the very top echelon. Right? When we think about other brands, when we think about how brands are able to gain a foothold in today's market, we can't simply look back to the heritage brands of the past and say, hey, anyone can be like that, right? Take a look at brands right now like Gabriela Hearst, right? Beautiful collection, beautiful product, but also coming from kind of a higher end 1%er perspective. And that allows her, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it gives her the ability to create a house, right? To create a namesake label, to be able to spend the money on the advertising, on developing the brand identity, and having her name be a legacy name. We're also seeing at the same time other brands on the direct-to-consumer route that are taking very different approaches. And I think it's important, guys, that we think about how it's not just about having a namesake label, it's about really understanding what kind of mark you want to leave in this world, and what kind of finances you have to invest in that, and what kind of business model you want to be able to implement in order to get there. Right? When I hear brands tell me I want to be the next Chanel or I want to be the next Givenchy, it's simply impossible. That is an era of time, right? These days, brands have to reinvent themselves. Gabriela Hearst is doing an amazing job with looking at sustainability and materials and bringing a true essence of understanding around sourcing and doing it in a very elegant and aspirational and designer way. However, there are other brands out there that are taking a very similar sustainability approach and doing it in different ways. And so again, guys, it's not just one way that we can approach business. We need to be thinking about this in terms of different forms, right? Different ways that we can capture our audience and different ways that we can really penetrate the market. So diversify, guys. It is extremely sad that Givenchy passed away. However, he was very privileged. Right? And there are a lot of people in this industry that are thinking about launching businesses and that want to have fashion companies that don't come from those resources. In some sense, I would say this forces you to be really scrappy and really innovative. But it would be remiss for me to tell you that you can compare yourselves and compare your backgrounds and levels of success based on a brand like that, right? Based on that history. All right, guys, just a couple other interesting things that I'm noticing in the market, and then I will let you guys go. I know there's an amazing week ahead of us. It's only Tuesday, and to be honest, guys, I've got to get ready for my talk. I'm giving a talk in a few hours over at the California Market Center on retailers and how retailers should be working with emerging market designers and what on earth that really means. So hopefully you guys, if you're in LA, can come take a look and swing by the CMC later today. But the last thing I wanted to talk about has to do with Alibaba and Jack Ma and their co-founders they're pumping, I think the quote said $20 million into Rent the Runway through their investment firm. And I think that is really smart, right? When we think about how these different types of tech companies, again, are harnessing the power of technologies, reinvesting into platforms that are scaling and that are fulfilling a need in the marketplace. We're seeing no better examples of that than Rent the Runway. We're also seeing great examples of that on The RealReal. Lots of great opportunity, guys, for technology to be integrating back into retail, back into fashion, and starting to help expand that on a global level. The last thing, guys, I would say is definitely keep your eye out for how these different companies are starting to spend their dollars. It's not just enough to be able to get investment, right? What's really intelligent here is to see what kinds of advertising are being used to really get in front of the market, right? Is it that you're getting in front of the market through looking at things like TV advertising, cable advertising? Is it that you're advertising on Sirius XM? Is it that you're advertising on billboards? It's not just digital marketing, even though you might be a digital marketing tech company, right? You've got to be thinking about marketing 360. All right, guys, that is all for me for Retailing Weekly this week. Please stay tuned. This week, we also have got a Instagram live session. We'll all be going over different things like payment gateways, how brands are being able to implement payment gateways and actually make more money, right? Can you imagine implementing payment gateways, closing your abandoned cart right down, and making more money? We just released a blog post yesterday on the Scaling Retail blog about that. Please take a look. Otherwise, I will catch you guys later on Instagram Live. Talk to you soon. Bye.